Spoilerin time is back on track. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back to watching Deadwood. We're going to talk about episodes 209 and 210. Also, episodes 5, 6, and 7 of season 2 of Westworld, and Solo, a Star Wars story with our special guest, Kent from Ritual Misery. I'm Tom. He's Brian Brushwood, and he's Kent.
Yeah, but meanwhile, I'm a listener who just subscribed to this feed, and I'm so confused. I thought this was the show about cutting the cords.
No one is confused, Brian, because they know that Cordkillers is the show where we talk about the devices and the streaming services and all the things you need to know to watch things. And this is the show where we've watched the things and we talk about them and spoil the plots.
Oh, well, it seems like I should subscribe at patreon.com/Cordkillers so I can get them all in one feed.
And join us in the movie draft.
Oh, that's right. Movie draft! Tom, how does it feel? How does it feel to be champion of the world, sitting there, King Tom of Tom Mountain?
I wonder how long I will sit there.
I don't know.
There's a propaganda movement from Movie League Mike to say that it's a lock for John Trekker to win this thing. And I've gone Stockholm Syndrome, and I look at Incredibles 2, and I look at the first Purge. Okay, I don't look at the first Purge. I look at Mission Impossible Fallout, and I think, yeah, those are a couple $300 million movies. That puts them at 790. I'm not gonna get much out of Hereditary. I'm gonna lose to John Trekker. I'm wrong though, right?
Okay. So right now you are sitting at $684 million, and you pretty much are out of movies. You got Hereditary, which, if we're going to be the most generous, we could say between Hereditary and whatever inertia exists on Infinity War, that you got another $100 million in the bank, right? So
maybe I would say I've definitely hit 700 million. Who knows how much farther?
So let's be generous and call you at 785, right? 785 is as far as you're going to go. Cordkillers, we thought, had a chance to plow past everything, especially since A Quiet Place had been it's not currently the best buy, but at one point it was the best buy in the entire thing because it made like $150 million. But Solo poo-pooed the bed, financially speaking.
Everybody's saying that about Solo because it did disappoint. It made $148 million. Like, it's fine. It's just below expectation.
Rogue One made 500.
The bed would be like 20 million.
Rogue One made like 500.
No, that's the wrong comparison. The comparison is the original Thor, the original Iron Man. Like this is Star Wars first branching out into, we're not going to have a blockbuster hit every time.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying that the significant feature is not that this is the first Star Wars story, but that it's the first back-to-back, like 4 months after another Star Wars movie.
I mean, nobody expect Ant-Man and the Wasp to make Infinity War numbers, and it's going to come out a few months after Infinity War.
I don't know, dude. I think it will make surprisingly big numbers. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp looks really good.
Oh, sure, but they don't expect it to make 643 million, do they?
No, I agree with that. But
so, and I am not trying to argue that Solo didn't disappoint. They still expected it to make more than this, but it just fell short. It didn't totally fail.
I think that Rogue One was a story of a heist involving 0 characters that were known, and Solo was a movie about the single most beloved character in the entire Star Wars universe.
We should probably hold this for discussing the actual
okay, so we'll save this for discussing it. I would say that if I had a stake in that game, I'd be pretty disappointed in Solo's numbers. But
yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the point here, is that Team Cordkillers needed more out of it, and they didn't get it.
Meanwhile, the case to be made for Incredibles 2, I think will be so huge. I think it's going to be so big. I think Movie League Mike has a good point. I think there's a good chance Team John Trekker runs away with it just on the value of that one purchase alone. Mainly because, like, I don't know what it's competing with in the kids' side of things. Certainly not Hotel Transylvania 3. I don't see that taking anything away from the kids' vote. And all the parents are going to love even the marketing for Incredibles 2. Like we were walking in and the one sheet is of, you don't see his face, you just see the body of Mr. Incredible ironing the Incredibles 2 uniform, which is doubly brilliant because not only does it remind you, oh, you know, ironing is something you do when you get ready to go back out in public, but it's also the theme of this particular episode is about him playing Mr. Mom. It's Mr. Mom, Mr. Incredible, while his wife goes off and Elastigirl kicks all the asses in public.
And don't forget Team Tell It Anyway. They just made $254 million off Deadpool 2. They've got Ant-Man and the Wasp, Uncle Drew, and Crazy Rich Asians. It's unlikely that they outdistance John Trekker or Team DTNS. But if we had a secret hit out of Crazy Rich Asians, maybe.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't represent me and my co-host of Night Attack, Justin Robert Young, by pointing out that it is still technically possible for Jurassic World to be a $400 million beast, in which case that puts us back in the running. And if Skyscraper turns out to be the next Die Hard with one leg, then we have a chance.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
If it's not Jurassic World Fallen box office, you definitely got a chance.
Correct. Too painful.
Kent, are you playing?
We're actually playing a B team version of the movie draft with some of the smaller shows like Ritual Misery and Movie Party and VOD Squad and shows like that.
Where can we follow along with that? Do you guys have an easy URL?
Oh my gosh, you would ask me that now.
Gotcha.
I'll have one for you here in a few minutes.
Okay, right. Roger that.
How are you doing in it though?
Right now, well, Ritual Misery was in first place until Avengers came out. And then when Deadpool came out, we're now down in third place out of 6 teams, I think.
What did the Avengers go for in your draft?
I think it was $60-something.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Tom got it for a bargain at what, 85?
Yeah,
85.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best point value, I guess, that we have going is A Quiet Place. That thing went for like $7, I think, is what we paid for it, and we cleaned up with that.
Yeah, pretty close to us as well. Quiet Place went for
24.
Wow, but even then it went for 24, like as a joke because somebody had extra money laying around.
Yeah,
right,
so tinyurl.com/B Team Movie Draft Summer 2018. That is not an easy URL.
You could also apparently not accurate. Capital B.
It is. Yeah, it is capitals. Let me.
Tiny URL, although it's not tiny. tinyurl.com/B Team Movie Draft Summer 2018.
Correct.
Yes,
with
each
with
word capitalized.
every first letter capitalized.
Got it.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. I'll go first, and then we could all just take pot shots at what I say.
Sure.
I thought it was a fun movie. It was a light movie. It was a heist movie. I felt like, Alden Ehrenreich, he's no Harrison Ford, but this character felt like a young, arrogant Han Solo that hasn't quite seen the world yet, and I like that. Love the meeting of Chewbacca. I'm a sucker for that stuff. Thought Donald Glover did an amazing job capturing the spirit of Lando Calrissian, and bought that. And I like that we got to know these other characters and that Kira is an interesting person that I want to find out more about. And if they do make others in this series, which there's talk that they might, I would love to see what they do with Kira. I'll go ahead and just jump right to the post-credit scene. I don't know how I feel about Darth Maul showing up at the end. Part of me loves it because we've gotten to know him in Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, which I have liked, but part of me actually prefers him to stay there because bringing him onto the movie screen suddenly makes me less okay with the fact that he used to have spider legs in the Clone Wars. You know, it just makes it more serious, and I'm uncomfortable with it.
So here's a surprise. I loved it.
Yeah.
Had a great time.
It's fun.
I smiled from beginning to end. And I think this is we're all going to therapy over Star Wars.
I know it wasn't a post-credit scene. It was just the last scene.
Sure. Post-story scene. Yeah, in the denouement. There's something about Star Wars that means so much to all of us that there's no way to view it in a void. There's no ability to truly evaluate what is good and not good and divorce it from your experience. But I will say that I was given a wonderful gift by Justin Robert Young in that he spoiled for me that surprise thing of Darth Maul showing up. And I am not somebody who watched all of Clone Wars, although I was aware that Clone Wars had brought him back from the dead or whatever. I watched most of Rebels, but still didn't get to finish it. But I, upon hearing that, was like, okay, I'm going to set my expectations low. So low, that I was able to super enjoy the movie because I expected nothing from it. And every laugh was a delight. In fact, all of my favorite parts were the laughs in the movie. And I found myself thinking, wouldn't mind if it was a little bit sillier. I wouldn't mind if it was just a little bit cheesier, a little bit funnier. I wouldn't mind if it, because halfway through watching, the opening escape in some version of a 57 Chevy or whatever, and him throwing his dice on the mirror, like it struck me in a way that I had not felt in a while. I was like, oh yeah, Star Wars is a really silly franchise. It's always been silly. And this is the first movie that since the original trilogy that I could enjoy its silliness and not wince at and not feel like, oh, I thought it was serious. And I don't know. I loved watching the Millennium Falcon start off as a crown jewel that just gets trashed all to hell by Han Solo. I liked. And Bryce complained about this, and I don't blame you, Bryce. Bryce was complaining about the inconsistent performance by Donald Glover.
Just pick an accent, dude. Pick one.
I kind of loved all of that too. I loved.
You could say the same thing about Carrie Fisher in Star Wars.
Sometimes she's British, sometimes she's not. Right?
I'm not used to that. I
it's
don't know
in the tradition of the milieu.
I also oh doggone it, there's something else I was gonna say. I even loved the weird acrobatics they did to justify why Lando is the only person in the Star Wars universe who calls Han, and they set it up with that sabacc thing. Did you catch that, Tom?
Oh yeah, no, I loved that.
Yeah,
where he's like, well, Han, and it was. I'm like that almost is real. Like you say Han, and the guy you don't like says it's Han, and that solidifies it. You're going to be called Han for the rest of your life.
Right. But the fact that it was, and the fact that they only once gave it that, no, I'm going to call you Han, and then it's never referenced again. So of course, 20 years later, when they're on Cloud City, that would happen. I thought it was delightful. Some of the things I'd heard was people didn't like how dark and gritty it was. I think that I was fine with all of that because he comes from a dark, gritty place, and I think that did a good job of masking the silliness of it. I think they got away with more silly stuff because it was portrayed cinematically as dark and gritty. Little things I noticed in the score and also in fan service. When I caught the fan service, I had to pause to decide if I liked it or not. Emilia Clarke punches someone out, and Han is like, "What was that?" And she goes, "It's Terras Kasi. I learned it on planet blah blah blah." And if I didn't know that Terras Kasi was the name of a PlayStation video game based on the Star Wars universe, that was just an excuse to do Street Fighter with Han Solo and Chewbacca, then I never would have caught that, and I don't think I would have minded it. But because I did, I was like, well, that was unnecessary, didn't add to the story, and only kind of distracted me with fan service. I also noticed, the same thing with hey man, we could have hired any bounty hunter like Bosk or IG-88, or that's not the one they said.
No,
whatever.
They mentioned one I didn't know and Bosk, and
yes.
I like that they mixed it up like that.
No, I think the other one was also from the books.
Oh, okay, I didn't recognize it then.
But so I'm undecided on that. I thought the actors were great. I enjoyed seeing Maeve as a funktacular afro-wearing bounty hunting lady. I full-on did not recognize Emilia Clarke the whole opening act when she was a street rat. It wasn't until I saw her in a dress and then I realized that was Daenerys. I too adored the silliness and the cheesiness of I don't know, the hokiness of the Chewbacca meeting. I loved
the
all
thing
of
that
it.
I love the most about it is, oh my God, this is Han and Chewbacca not liking each other. The only time we'll ever see that. right?
Well, and there are
Like Chewbacca actively wants to kill Han Solo. That was kind of fun.
My biggest shock, loved Woody Harrelson in this world. He was the best part. He was great. He was I don't know, I liked it a lot. Okay, real quick, let's talk about the music. A bit too I almost resented all of the times that I recognized individual themes at individual moments. Like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you remember that, right? The one time I liked it, and even then I'll put a question mark on it, is when Han goes to sign up with the Imperials, and you hear a version of the Imperial March, but
kind of barely fits in, yeah.
But it's in a major key, so it sounds inspiring and kind of poetic and nationalistic. I didn't mind that, and I think that that's residual goodwill from listening to the NPR radio drama, where the same thing, a similar thing happened, where the opening scene with Luke is him listening to an Imperial recruitment audio propaganda tape, and they're like, "And join the ranks of the proud," and he's like, "Oh, I love it! I can't wait to become an Imperial pilot." I don't know. I had a blast. I laughed a lot. And all the moments I laughed made me very happy. And what was really interesting, my last thought, is I looked over to Penny around the time, because I did know that the Darth Maul thing was coming. And I looked at her face, and Penny has never seen any of the prequels. She knows that I disapprove of them and she won't watch them. But she did watch all of Clone Wars and watched all of Rebels. So to her, she got the magical experience of seeing a minor character in one of her favorite Star Wars TV shows escalate to the big screen. And it's like, oh, that's what an amazing twist.
Called up to the big leagues.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm surprised to say that I liked it a lot, almost to the tune of, I almost to the tune of wanting to see it again, but I'm not sure. But I wonder how much of that was just because of me, number one, being late to it, me, number two, having important parts spoiled so that my expectations were recalibrated. But I enjoyed it. Kent, walk me through your experience.
Yeah, well, I absolutely loved it, and I do have to say that I was a little bit surprised to hear that you liked this movie, because I know how despising you were of Rogue One because of how fan servicey it was and all of that.
And to clarify, the fan service was part of the litany of complaints I had, but the biggest one is that there was no care. I still to this day can't tell you a single name of a single character from that, or why I cared about them, or why I felt anything at any point. Whereas like I felt instantly for all of the characters.
Yeah, I loved probably every single moment of this movie. Like I've been a Star Wars fan since I was born. I think I was actually born in 1977, the year the first one came out, and it's just like it's been the thing that I've grown up loving. And some of the newer movies have been better than others, but this one, Solo, I kind of walked into it afraid to have high expectation of this movie, so I went in a little bit reserved, I think, and it was delightful from the opening title screen all the way to the end. I loved it. The acting was better than I even expected. Lando Calrissian was spot on. I could not have asked for someone better than Donald Glover to play that part.
Can I interject and ask if I liked Lando? I loved L3. I loved the design of that droid. Those anthropomorphic things they do, like giving her, and it's definitely a her, these wide hips and her gait as kind of a bossy woman, this feminist in charge, telling people I don't know, go free your brothers. I don't give a rat's ass. Let me do my job. Loved every moment with her. It's been a long time since I've seen a droid that captured me like that.
Yeah, and I love that she is now part of the Millennium Falcon. I love how they threw that in there.
Which almost justifies, and again, maybe that's fan service, because that justifies the temperament, the character of the Falcon. We've not had a reason for that, but I like it.
C-3PO remarks on the peculiar dialect later on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there were so much little things in there. One of the things I was worried about going into this movie was that it would be fan service to death, where, like, do we really have to see the Kessel Run? Do we have to see, how the Millennium Falcon was won? Do we have to see how Chewbacca was freed? We saw all of those things, and it didn't feel like it was forced into the plot. Like it felt like it was just a part of this wonderful adventure movie that we're watching, and it just happened to answer all of the questions that we might have had about Han Solo's past.
The Kessel Run in particular, I've always felt was a forced explanation for a mistake. Like, right. Parsecs are not speed, but okay, let's pretend it was about the route. After this movie, I'm like, oh no, that makes sense. Like they made it make sense in a way that it never has to me before.
Yeah. Well, so I've got a quick story about the ending, the Darth Maul ending, right? So my girlfriend Stephanie and I, we like to have conversations quite often, speculating about what the future Star Wars is going to be. We religiously watched the Clone Wars and Rebels, and we're going to do the same with any new show that comes out. So a few weeks ago, we were actually having a conversation about what we think, like the new, like maybe Rian Johnson's films or whatever. And she was like, one thing that I'm going to call it right now, I'm predicting that Darth Maul is going to be back in a live action movie.
And you're like, no way.
Yeah, I was like, no, like we don't argue about a lot, but you are dead wrong on this. There's no way they're going to bring Darth Maul into the live action universe because they killed him in Phantom Menace. And then in like kind of what Tom said earlier, the way that they presented him in the cartoons is, well, like kind of cartoony, right? Like
especially in Clone Wars, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and also his story has been told. They sewed it up really nicely with Obi-Wan on Tatooine. I'm done seeing that story. And then to have the very next Star Wars thing that we saw together, and there's Darth Maul, and she just like, I could hear her like gasp in the movie theater, and I knew that the next words out of her mouth were going to be, "I told you so." But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm really curious to see where they go with this, because the potential of having additional Han Solo movies, or even just like the Boba Fett movie, I love this idea of the fringe, the fringe of society version of Star Wars, like the criminal underbelly, all of that, the smugglers, the bounty hunters, and all of that. I've always really loved that aspect of Star Wars, and to see it finally playing out on the screen, I think is awesome. And I can't wait to see what direction they take this.
Here's the trap I may have laid for myself is I deeply loved the books of the expanded universe, and all of the things that I've heard some people dinging Solo on are things I loved when they were written in the expanded universe. And I feel like maybe I'm just, cozying up to Solo because I'm telling myself this is just the expanded universe coming to life on the screen. And if they have a problem with those things, they would have had a problem with them in the book. And you loved them in the book, and you're a hypocrite if you don't also love them on the big screen. And that includes justifying the Kessel Run expressed in parsecs instead of time units and that kind of stuff. So I don't know why, but it is as big a surprise to me as to anyone else that I enjoyed the movie as much as I did, and I really, really did enjoy it.
I would know. I think it's about expectations. I think there's so many reasons why people are not happy with Solo, and we're not happy with Last Jedi. You could write a doctoral thesis on it, but one of them is specifically with Solo. Everyone is expecting each Star Wars to be The Empire Strikes Back. Everyone is expecting it to be a huge, amazing, life-changing blockbuster, and they can't. That doesn't mean they shouldn't make them unless they, you would never tell Marvel, only make a movie if it can be Avengers or Avengers Infinity War, right? Or Guardians of the Galaxy. You have to create a lot of different ones of these to get to Infinity War, or to get to Logan even. If you're X-Men, you have to create a lot of eggs to make an omelet. And I think that's what Solo is. You have to go in just saying, I just want to have fun. I'm not in it for the Force being explained or the Skywalker saga. I'm not even in it to learn that much about Han Solo, and you'll be pleasantly surprised because you'll learn a little bit about him. But just go for an adventure space story, and it's a really good one.
Also, I was so surprised at how many actors I recognize from other things, and I still don't know their names. Like Bonnie's kicking me, like, that's sentient robot man. I'm like, what? You're like, from the other series, like Iron Man's armor became sentient or something. I'm like, are you talking about the guy Vision? Oh, wait, yeah, no, that is Vision.
Yeah.
and then I'm kicking Bonnie. I'm like, I want to find my baby in Westworld lady.
Sandy
Maeve?
Newton.
Yes, Maeve.
Yeah. That's great. Well, speaking of Westworld, we're going to move along to Westworld, which Kent, unfortunately for us, is not watching, which means we have to say goodbye. But thanks for hanging out and spoiling Solo with us.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on again. This has been a blast as always.
Dude, you are fantastic. And of course, everybody should check out Ritual Misery. Head on over to ritualmisery.com every Thursday at 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific. I can do time zones. Bringing you the best of geekdom. And what's your elevator pitch that you give for Ritual Misery?
Yeah, we're two lifelong friends that like to geek out about sci-fi, fantasy, tech, and whatever else geeky our guests want to talk about.
Excellent. Go check it out. Thanks again, Kent.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, bud.
All right. To Westworld, episodes 5 through 7 of season 2.
3 Westworlds. Oh, you meant
He said
on.
T-O.
Oh, yeah. On to Westworld.
Yes. Onward ho, Westworld, and may your Dolores ever find you not worthy of shooting. I don't even know how to approach these because they're so all over the place. We've got kind of 3-ish storylines. One that's set after the events, where they're coming in and trying to recover Dolores's father. One that is set immediately after the events of last season, where Dolores is leading a rampage through to get to the Valley Beyond. And then there's Bernard, who kind of like, sometimes he's in the far past and sometimes he's in the present and sometimes he's in that future where the people are back. I don't even know how to categorize all that stuff. But the upshot is I feel like even though we have those 3 different time periods, the story is still easier to follow than it was last season. And I was shocked when they brought Ford back into it.
Yeah, let's start with that. Here's my theory, Tom, is they committed with Anthony Hopkins' agent for 1 season. And the script was written that he would be killed at the end of season 1, and he committed to doing it. Then after the fact, it performed well and seemed to be good. At which point, because they played coy with every other Ford moment, showing the back of his head, showing his reflected face, where it's like, okay, they're doing that trick where they grab unrelated footage and they wedge it in or whatever.
Easier to negotiate the license for that. Sure.
This last episode of like, oh no, I guess he just
shot stuff.
I guess he's just full on back on the show, and
he's operating Bernard now.
Yes, and he's suddenly the main character again, and I wonder how much of this, and this is a dark thought, but Sir Anthony Hopkins is what, in his late 80s now, early 80s?
Sure.
But logistically, when you're planning something out that probably has a 14-year history, you don't know how long everybody will be. Yeah, he's 80 years old now. You don't know how long all of the actors will be in good health. So this is probably a smart move, logistically speaking, to essentially set up Bernard as the physical apparatus representing Ford, right? Having said that, it doesn't feel forced or weird or any of that stuff. I thought all of it was great. And they gave us long enough with getting comfortable with the idea of Ford being dead that now seeing him essentially in charge as the ghost conscience of Bernard, totally cool with, right?
I find it fascinating. I am interested in what happens in the Valley Beyond, even though I know it ends in a flood. And I am very, very interested. I don't give a damn what's in the head of the guy. I get it. It's Facebook, right? They've got all the data and they can target people. I'm very interested in what's going to happen there, because it can't be as easy as Tessa's character decides to gets a hold of the thing again and takes off, right? It's going to be more interesting than that. At least I hope it is. So I've got two mysteries, one of which I know how it ends and I still care about, and one of which I know how I'm supposed to think it would end and I know it won't. And that's really fun to be in right now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about going back to 3 episodes where we visited Shogun World or Samurai World. Oh,
right.
Or whatever.
No, that whole storyline was really fun. Didn't you think?
I thought it was fun until it was over. And then I closed my eyes and I pictured all the visuals I saw. And when it so obviously is just the story of Westworld skinned slightly differently, and so obviously to the point that one of the main characters needs to turn to the writer character and say, this is some sloppy writing, isn't it? This is just Westworld skinned slightly differently. And the writer says, yes, this is lazy writing that we're doing right now on the show Westworld that you're watching right now.
No, I didn't think it was lazy writing. I think they were acknowledging that, like, yes, we know what we're doing here. It's not forgivable if you don't pull anything else out of it. And so that's the question: is what did we learn there? What did Thandie Newton's character learn that brought her out? And I was actually fine with it until you just mentioned that, because I'm like, no, she was inspired and it changed her, and then she went back into the world, and then she got shot up. So
shot up and then chewed out
like
by.
It was worth it. Until I just realized, but it didn't work. She didn't get her daughter back. She didn't learn from the experience. So now it feels like, well, it better pay off in some other way that I don't expect, or Brian's right.
Well, and not only that, but like she got shot up, and then Dolores walks up saying, like, the hell are you doing? Remember at the end of last season, you should have just left. Why did you go back? You're just pre-programmed. And the answer is some kind of wishy-washy, well, sometimes freedom means the freedom to do what you're programmed to do. Beep, bop, moop, bop.
It does, though. It does, though. I'm so mad about that.
Like, I don't know. This is just me being irritable.
But it's also
Brian doesn't understand loving daughters. That's all.
Meanwhile, I dive out the window. I'm like, I'm out of here.
Well, also at the end of 207. It's pretty clear that Maeve and William are both definitely going to still be alive, right?
To my deep consternation, because William definitely gets shot 5 times, and I'm like, okay, usually 5 shots or 4 shots followed by 1 through the chest is kind of the universal symbol for you're probably dead. And then and he very clearly looks like he's just about to shrug it off and get back to work.
But also, like, every other death that we've seen in Westworld from gunshots is like a one and done. Like, Westworld is depicted as being the opposite way, where one shot takes out pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
But William has taken multiple.
Well, and
already.
Dolores too. Dolores could get shot in the shoulder 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Doesn't slow her down either.
Well, okay. So along that line, doggone it, there's a thought that I'm trying not to lose here.
Maeve?
No. I don't think we had talked about it since the introduction of his daughter, of William's daughter, and that whole arc of him thinking that his daughter was just a host meant to mess with him. Were you still in Australia? Were you in Australia when they did the version where they went to Imperial India?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I love that whole scene. I love the introduction of his daughter. I loved so we haven't even talked about that wonderful vignette.
We talked about her leaving Imperial India.
Yeah, that was episode 4.
Actually, we didn't get to talk about her meeting him.
So that means we also didn't talk about the Immortality Project and the attempt to resurrect Delos. Which I thought was a lovely vignette, and I think that episode may be the best episode that I've seen to date. I haven't seen anything that supersedes it. Everything since then, we're doing awful lot of jumping around, and we're also seeing characters where it's implied that they killed some people and took their guards' uniforms or whatever, but we don't see it, and that would be fine, except for I am left constantly feeling like I've forgotten something. And it's only when I talk things through with Bryce the next day that I'm like, okay, good. So you didn't see that either. We definitely both, that's not a scene that was shown, and it's not that I saw it and forgot it. And
gotcha.
I feel like I'm constantly on defense with this show. And I understand why they're doing it, but it is leaving me constantly feeling like I shouldn't talk about it until I bother to go online and look up what everything happened and whether or not I noticed a thing. And it begins with, at the beginning of season 2, the fact that there's a flooded valley, and every article mentioned that, and Teddy's one of the dead. I was like, how did I miss that? It seems like that's the job of the director, is to make sure I see the corpse of Teddy and understand that Teddy is one of the dead and that this is in the future.
Yeah. I do like, though, that the payoff of the Delos project has not been, and so we're going to be immortal. It's for Dolores and friends to realize, like, you guys can't make copies. We're better than you. Like, we are surpassed. You want to become us, and you can't. So we are obviously the superior life form, and that's echoed in what Ford tells Bernard as well.
Yeah, I think my big chagrin with going to Shogun World is that if Shogun World was truly a different set piece and felt like we were seeing another world, then I would hold out hope that season 3 and season 4 take place in New York and Los Angeles and in Bangladesh and in Antarctica or whatever, you know. But instead, that brief sojourn after so much buildup led me to believe, like, oh, no. We're always going to be just in this town square.
We're going to keep going back to Westworld.
And then on top of that, just when I was like settling in, like, oh, we're never really going to leave here, are we? Then they discover a computer that's running a simulation that makes sure to remind us of what it looked like back in the first season. It's a uncorrupted version of Westworld, complete with Ford. And I was just like, oh, this is as far as we're going to go, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Unfortunately, we'll see. Might be pleasantly surprised, but I don't know. Next week, Dolores and Man in Black will be dead. There's no way around it. They've been shot too
We
much.
definitely saw both of them get shot a bunch of times, and we all know
also you mean
that once you're shot, you're dead.
Yeah. Oh, and Maeve. Yeah, Maeve.
And once your contract is up,
who's gonna fix Maeve? Right? Because she's not. She's android shot up. So.
That's the one. That's the one arc that I truly enjoyed. Is that brief 2 episodes when Maeve realized that she's the one, she's Neo, and that she just had control of everything. And it was awesome to see her in charge. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they full on kill off this Maeve, because a Maeve who realizes that she's Neo is too much for the story. So maybe we see a Maeve, you know, like, oh, we booted up another Maeve. She hasn't yet figured out that she's Neo.
Yeah. Maybe when they fix her.
I'm not gonna in the next week on for Westworld, I'm not gonna say what's in it, but I can see when I saw that clip, I was like, oh, that's what they might do with Maeve.
She's got spider legs and a lightsaber.
Well,
she's a crime boss now.
I won't go into it, but I think because it seems like next week.
And she was talking to Daenerys. It was weird.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Deadwood episodes 9 and 10, where I feel like, in a way, Deadwood has found out what its new story is. Its new story is about saving the camp from the Hearsts and the relationship triangle of Alma, Anna Gunn, and Raylan.
Yeah, you definitely, and that's the title of the episode, the triangle of Alma, Anna Gunn, and Raylan. Okay, I think you're right. I don't remember what order this happened, but there was some deliberately circumspect, creepy vibes to the whole, let me borrow I'm just going to call him Raylan's son to come watch me ride a bike and end up alone in an alley with a guy who's a bit handsy. And then
that guy was creepy. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Well, and then what do you think explicitly happened? Because you see him helping out and being handsy with the kid. Then you see him handing over a coin saying, keep that between us. And if you want to tell your dad that I helped you up onto a bike, well, that's up to you. Like, is that pretty much direct acknowledgement that there was some kind of molestation event happening?
No, it's not. But it also isn't not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's very. I read it as not having to be that. If you're really uncomfortable with it being that, then you can definitely say, no, that's not what he meant. It's just that he and Seth don't get along. And so he's trying to keep it quiet that he even talked to him. But at the same time, if you want, or not want, but if you think that's what it's trying to say, it definitely does not prevent that from being the explanation either.
There was like a growing disquiet from the very moment he came and borrowed
I thought
the kid.
that was going to be the drama there, right? Like, okay, a boy being taken out to ride the bicycle, sure. In that era, that would happen, right? The bartender is somebody who's known to Seth, and that's fine. That kind of aside with the guy that Seth it doesn't get along with, I'm like, oh, okay, something's going down here. Then he gets his chest caved in by a horse. I'm like, we didn't even need that unless there's another nickel to drop there. And that's why I'm not saying no, there's nothing there, because why do you bother with that scene if you're not going to have it pay off somewhere else?
So here's the part that I was still on the fence about what all that meant until after the kid had been trampled, seeing the overly aggressive way with which both Mr. Pennyhandler and Mr. Penny Farthing respond. Like, it was this overreaction that to me read as misdirected guilt turned into over rage for the two African-American men who were responsible for the horse that got loose. Like, right. It seems to me like that's the way you act when you know you were guilty of something and you want to misdirect.
Not all just feels bad, and the bike now represents this horrible thing that happened. That seems pretty straightforward to me. The other guy, he wanted to be a racist before. There's no surprise that he's going to redirect whatever into racism. But why? I mean, I guess maybe the why he feels bad is he was holding the boy when it happened.
I see. And that's why, like, that level of rage seems like what you do when you want to paint a circle around something that isn't you and what you were up to with that kid in that alley.
I mean, maybe not. I really, yeah.
And maybe that's the brilliance of it. Really, it's a Rorschach test. You can read it either way. I mean, totally. It definitely felt creepy to me in that one way.
But certainly the piece in our time of them coming together in the bank and not getting angry whenever he thought they would get angry, and Trixie sort of being part of that all felt like, oh, this is what Deadwood's about now. It's about the relationships between these people, and I'm interested in that, and I'm also interested in Swearingen now that he's back, and his manipulations and lies and getting angry at Merrick. Like, yeah, you tell a small lie, that's all the lies at once. Come on, have some subtlety, for goodness sake.
It's a good structure, and it really undercuts the experience to know that there is a third season, right? There's a few episodes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, but knowing that this is the beginning of a wonderful 7-season story that we're not going to get the full story of, it really does feel like, like the Avengers. They all get together, they all start fighting, they're all wildly different anti-heroes / heroes, and then they finally come together.
Just look at the flowers, Brian. Just look at the flowers. Don't think about it.
Why they face something bigger, and likewise, we understand the motivations of everybody in Deadwood, and it does feel like this is around the time that we'd like to see them all pull together to take on Thanos in the form of the Hearst Company, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And gosh, I do hope that they get the guy who played Cable in Deadpool 2 to play Hearst.
Things that annoyed me. It continues to annoy me that Cy Tolliver becomes increasingly a cartoon. Like, he was the most interesting character. He's almost
best. Irrelevant now, isn't he?
Yes. He's weak, which I don't like seeing him weak. He's a cartoon, which I don't like seeing him a cartoon. He's powerless, which I don't like seeing him powerless. I could handle all of that if that was happening in the face of Joni just slaying it at running her own brothel. But instead, she's weak, powerless, and I guess her full-time job is sitting in a darkened, unpopulated brothel with no whores. And I'm like, what are any of you doing? Why you're all in?
Well,
you're all
it
in
was
carbonite.
a slower time. You took weeks to recover from your business failing back then.
I mean, I guess I did enjoy seeing the burgeoning friendship between Calamity Jane and Joni,
And Joni,
but even that didn't really go anywhere.
Nice.
You know, I mean, it's driving me nuts.
No, I agree with you about Psy. Psy is just he simply exists to be W's foil, to make W look more serious.
Which is too bad, because I even
Walcott, I guess.
Even when he's pinned down, I feel like the Cy Tolliver we met in season 1 would figure out some room to maneuver and do something. Like, granted, he can't get out from under a thumb, but by God, he's going to take control of what he can take control of. And we're seeing none of that, which is very confusing and frustrating.
Yeah. Well, folks, we're back in the swing. We'll be watching Deadwood number 11 of season 2, and of course the new Westworld next week, and who knows what else. Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. You can get this show early, as well as after show items that Brian and Bryce and I talk about. That's at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.